How do you mark the length of your firewood? I never realized just how many firewood markers are available to buy on the market today. As you folks know, we've always used a Mingo marker here for years and years. And most recently, I came across a new product called the Firewood PROSIZER. It's a laser. And I've been testing that out on the channel. But there are more. So just for fun, we're going to try out 4 different markers today out on the wood stack. I hope you'll stick around. To be honest, I was quite surprised at just how many people are selling these firewood markers. And there's really only a few different basic designs, but there's a number of different people who have created the same type of marker. Whether it's one like the ACCUMARK you're going to see today, which has a magnet that sits on the side of your bar, or it's one that's got, you know, the whip or the rod that you connect to one of your housing nuts, and it sticks out the side. There's also one I found on Amazon where you're supposed to drill a hole into the handle of your saw and permanently attach it. Not a big fan. And then of course there's the Mingo, there's the Firewood PROSIZER, which you folks have seen recently, and there's one really special firewood marker that I'm going to try out today because I just have to. Saw it on another channel called In the Woodyard. Chris showed it to us about a month ago. I just got to try it today. And like anything else, you know, we're all different people. What works for me might not work for you. What you may prefer or I may prefer may not be something you prefer. But it's always nice to try them. So today, we're going to try out 4 different methods. I got 4 logs back there of about the same size. And we're going to mark and we're going to cut and we're going to time them. And then we'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons of each one. I'm going to sharpen this guy up and I'll see you out at the woodpile. Let's do it. So our first contender, the ACCUMARK. ACCUMARK, I believe, is made in the US. There are a number of other companies that make a very similar type of device with a magnet on the end that sticks to the bar of your saw. From what I've read and what I've researched and the feedback or consumer comments that I've seen on others, as well as the ACCUMARK, this appears to be the best quality built marker of this type. They have a number of different models. This one in particular telescopes out to I think 20 inches. Has a compression fitting here and I put it right back in at 16. It's made out of carbon fiber and I can attest this magnet is super strong. Once she grips, she's on. And I've seen comments on other types where they say the magnets on them are very, very weak, which is not a good thing to have when you've got a saw spinning at 3,000 RPM. I thought I'd throw down a few pros and cons, just from my own opinions or thoughts. With the ACCUMARK, it's pretty simple. It's very lightweight. You can carry it in your back pocket or your side pocket. Goes on and off easy. And the nice thing about it is you can cut from either side of the log because you just flip it to the other side of your bar. Unlike some of the other markets where you can only cut from one side at a time. You don't need to change a battery. You don't need to buy any, you know, refills of paint or anything like that, similar to the other ones. A con, you have to use it to spin up the saw to go down the log first and then go back and make your cuts. I'm not sure how effective it is in a log pile, unlike some of the other markers where you can just go through and mark them up and just buck away after that. I think this is kind of a one log at a time kind of use, then you take it off, buck that log up. But other than that, it's just the extra work of having to fire up your saw, run the saw, to mark them first and go back. I don't think there's many other cons to it. It's a pretty simple device. And this model of ACCUMARK will cost you just under $50 US. Yeah. That was a hard butt. We won't count that one. It's about 15 and a half. 16, 16, 16, 16. All of them right on. Our next contender, the Firewood PROSIZER. That's the laser that's clamped to the handle of your saw. Similarly, you guys have seen a number of different videos I've done over the last month as I've been testing it out on the channel. Pretty simple, it's a red laser light. I know that for folks that are colorblind, they may not be able to see red, which is something I learned afterwards, but a good point to remember if you're looking at different markers. It clamps on tight. A few people have asked me, can you bump it and move it? You can't. Once she's on there rock solid. Point the laser at the last cut, make your cut. A couple of pros and cons on it. On the pro side, it's on your saw all the time. You don't have to worry about bringing something else with you into the forest. It's at the ready. All you got to do is push a button and start bucking, turn the button off, go out tomorrow. It's always with you. There's no pre-marking needed. You don't have to pre-mark your logs first and then go at it. You just start bucking. Some cons, it's battery operated. It's a lithium battery. You'll get about 5 hours charge, but you've got to charge the battery. So you don't want to be in the forest in the event that you are and you run out of battery, because now you can't mark. And the other issue, as you folks have seen on the last videos, is you need to be really accurate and perpendicular with your saw, because you yaw that saw one way or another and you're going to move that laser dot. I also learned after I made a few adjustments that you have to get used to where you want to point the light or how far from the edge of the last cut in order to get your 16s. And your Firewood PROSIZER will cost you $69 US. 15 3/4, 16 1/2, oh, 16 3/4, 15 1/4, 16 on, 16 on. So why does it matter if it's 16 inches or 16 1/2 or 15 or 18? I think if you're doing your own firewood and it's for your own use, probably doesn't matter, especially if you stack like most people do, 4 feet high, 8 feet long. But I'll tell you when it does matter, I think. When you're stacking it 8 feet high to the rafters, that's when length matters. A little bit here and there is not a big deal, but trying to put 18-inch wood and 15-inch wood in with 16-inch wood while you're trying to stack 8 feet in the air, that's never good. And when you're selling firewood, consistent, high-quality product matters. Our next marker up, the Mingo marker. As you folks know, we've been using this years and years. Long before I even met Guy and Bob, they've been using it. Comes with a number of different size marker wheels. Pretty simple to use, lightweight plastic, but it's good sturdy plastic. You need an inverted paint can in order to use it. And as you know, you run it down your logs, shoots out a dot every 16 inches or 18 or 24, whatever you set it to. A couple of pros and cons. It is simple from a pro perspective. It's simple, it's accurate every time, or at least your dots are dropping accurate. Whether or not I hit the dot or not is a different story. You could do multiple logs. One of the things we love about using a Mingo is you get out in the forest and probably like yourself, we don't drop one log at a time. We've got a ton of logs out there. We buck them at 10 feet or whatever lengths we have. And one guy will run ahead and just run down all the logs and mark them all ahead of time while guys start to buck behind them. So it's very efficient that way, I think. You're gonna look at about, I think, $38 US for a Mingo. On the con side, you gotta buy paint. You run out of paint, you can't mark anymore. You'll also find too that you've gotta make sure, like any other paint can, you keep that tip clean. If you don't keep it clean, I just was reading a comment this morning, she'll spray all over you, and she'll spray kinda ugly. It's paint. Other than that, I don't think there really is any other type of a con other than it's just something else you have to carry in the old firewood trailer. And hey, if you're willing, I'd love to hear how you mark your firewood. Leave it in the comments, or any feedback or any ideas or objective perspectives you have on any of the types of markers today. As always, I'd love to see them in the comments. 16 1/2, 15 3/4, 16 right on, 15 1/4, 16 right on. Oh, that's my last cut. Only 2 16s. Interesting. I know what you're thinking. I did too. But Chris uses cable ties. And I just had to try it because it just seems too simple to work. Let's throw it on. Let's buck up a log. He puts it at the bottom of his handle. If this works, I'll tell you. Chris, you might put a lot of people out of business here. Firms it up, and we're gonna cut it here. So I need 16 inches from my bar. There's 16. There we go, dull. And then he puts a bright colored tape on the end. I guess so we can see it easier. Okay, there it is. Nice thing about it, you can throw it back, throw it out, put it back, throw it out. Let's go test it out. All right, and our last contestant today, the In the Woodyard's cable tie marker. I have to tell you, I enjoyed using it today. You'll see shortly. But basically, it's a cable tie. As Chris told us, he usually puts 3 together and ties them together. Puts some kind of a reflective or a colored tape on the end so he can see it easier. From a pro perspective, super cheap. I mean, they're cable ties. You don't have to buy fancy ones. They're disposable. They're pretty durable. They're very flexible. You can move it out of the way, put it out when you need it. Whether or not it's accurate, you're going to see shortly. On a cons basis, it could bend when you've got it in your case. And you know, like many cable ties, if you leave it in your saw case for too long, that bend kind of tends to stay in the tie for a while. I mean, it is already. So you've got to make sure you've got it straight because it's whipping around on you. You're looking at that cable tie at an angle, similar to the PROSIZER. You're not behind the cable tie to see your 16 edge. You're looking at it on an angle, so that may mess up your accuracy, but you may get used to it like many other things over time. I think that's all I got, but you know, you're looking at 25-30 cents a cable tie because obviously you need to buy the longer ones to get it out to your 16 or your 18 or your 24 inches. These are definitely longer because I could tell after I started cutting that the line was far in from the ends, but let's check it out. 17 3/4, 16 3/4, 16 3/4, 16 1/4. No 16s. All right, let's check out the results. You know, as I've mentioned many times in the channel, we're all different folks. Different things work better for different people. We got 4 of them here, and generally speaking, notwithstanding me, you know, stepping around a few times before I turned off the timer on a few, and in all fairness to our In the Woodyard cable tie, I had a couple of knots on that one. You probably noticed, so it took longer to get through. But your run times for the ACCUMARK was 1 minute 52 seconds. PROSIZER was 1 minute 20 seconds. Mingo was 1 minute 20. And the In the Woodyard cable tie, 1:45. But again, a couple of big knots I had to dig through there. As far as accuracy, the ACCUMARK, every single block was 16 inches right on the money. Your PROSIZER, only 2 of the 5 cuts were 16 inch. The others were, as you saw, a little bit outside or a little bit lower. Mingo, only 2, surprisingly, out of the 5 were 16 inch cuts. And that might have something to do with me dropping it on whatever part of that dot I got. And then Chris is, unfortunately, although I was rooting for you in the Woodyard, not a single one was at 16 inches. And I think I know why. Because as I was going across the log, I started to realize that similar to those other types of markers you can buy that tie into the nuts on the side of the housing, the wand or the rod shoots out to the side. And when you're looking down, you're on an angle. So you're trying to line up the end of that cable tie with the end of the last cut, and you're looking at it at a 45-degree angle. You can't lean over far enough to see it straight on. And I imagine over time, as you get used to what that angle is, similar to the PROSIZER, moving that laser around, you probably get more and more effective with it and more accurate with it. But for a first-time use, she didn't pull a single 16, but that's all right. Either way, I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And you got to see a couple of different ways of marking your firewood. If you like the channel, please click subscribe, hit the like button, and if you want to know when I'm posting more videos, just click that little bell. Have a wonderful and safe week with your families. Please be kind to one another. And I'll see you back here on GP Outdoors. Cheers.